Whenever you're using a new tool or system, the hardest part is getting things set up, especially when it comes to coding and coding tools. And Git and GitHub are very useful tools for software developers, but they do require some initial setup. I remember when I was working at my first company, they told me that the code is in Git and I needed to run some Git commands to get the code in my local machine to do some development. And thankfully, I had a coworker who could show me around and show me what to do and explain things a little bit. And there were also some resource pages that I could look at to read and get set up. But it was hard at first, and there were a lot of times when I was working on different machines at my company, and so I would have to do the whole setup, the whole Git setup process for each of those machines. And so it was annoying in the beginning. One of the main frustrations I encountered in the Git setup process is I would do a Git clone of my repository, and then I would press enter, and then I would get this error, permission denied public key. And this is a very common error, especially when you're using Git for the first time on your machine, and it has to do with how you're setting up your SSH keys. And so in this video, I'm going to be explaining a little bit on what SSH keys are, how they work. I'm going to show you how to fix this problem and things you can do to diagnose this problem. So my name's Henrik and I'm here to help you learn the foundations of software development. So let's get started. Before we begin, if you're still getting the hang of Git or feeling unsure how it all fits together, I put together a free PDF guide called my Git Started Guide. It's a beginner-friendly roadmap with clear steps and links to videos that walk you through everything from cloning to pushing your code. I made it specifically for people who don't want to feel lost when using Git. You can grab it for free in the link in the description. Alright, to start off, let's first talk about SSH. So SSH stands for Secure Shell, and it's a network protocol that is used to be able to communicate securely over a network. Usually there's an unsecured network, like the internet. SSH allows you to authenticate a connection, and so you're the client and you want to talk to a server, like the GitHub server, but the GitHub server wants to make sure you're legit. They want to make sure you're a valid user of their server. So you would use SSH to be able to authenticate your connection. When you do a Git clone, you're actually trying to communicate with a GitHub server, and you do the Git clone, and then whatever is said here will specify how you're trying to communicate with the GitHub server. So you can do this in two ways. You can either do it through HTTPS or through SSH. So here's one of my repositories called Rookie, and you can actually go here and you can see there's two main ways that you can do a Git clone. You can either do HTTPS and then use this URL, or you can use SSH and then you have to use SSH keys. And if you want more information on how to do it in these two different ways, you can watch my Git clone via HTTPS and SSH video. For me, I think SSH is more convenient because once you set up the keys, you can just run this command and it works every time, and you just set it and forget it. So the way that GitHub knows it's actually you and it authenticates you as the user is through public key cryptography. So in public key cryptography, you're going to generate SSH keys, a public key and a private key. And the public key is a key that you can send to the GitHub server and store it there. And then the private key is a key that you keep to yourself. And so with these keys, you can verify, you can authenticate yourself as the user. So what GitHub is going to do, when you do a Git clone, GitHub will send you a challenge that only your private key can answer correctly. And when your private key answers that challenge correctly, GitHub allows you to clone that repository into your local machine. A simple analogy to explain this further is you can think of your private key like your signature, and then a public key is just a copy or a picture of your signature. So you can give that picture to GitHub, and then GitHub will store it. And then when you try to connect to the GitHub server, then it will ask you to sign a piece of paper, and then you can sign it with your private key. And then after you're done signing it, GitHub will compare that paper with the picture of your signature, and then it can verify if the signatures match, and then if they do match, then GitHub knows it's actually you, and then it will authenticate you and say you can go ahead and clone this repository. So in summary, you have a public and private key pair, and they're mathematically linked, so there's a one-to-one mapping there, and the private key is like a signature, and then the public key can verify the signature, but it cannot reproduce that signature. So we've been talking about keys, but where exactly are they located in your computer? So you just pull up terminal, and then you can do cd, and then go to your root directory, and then you can do SSH. So it's in a hidden directory called SSH. So you go there and then you can do ls to see what's inside, and I have no keys there. And that's why I'm running into that problem with the permission denied public key, because I don't have any keys. So what we need to do here is we need to use ssh-keygen, and we can generate some new keys. Now, there are different types of keys that you can use. I recommend that you stick to the one that your company tells you to use. But if you don't have an idea on what to use, you can just use ED25519. This is a good type to use for most cases. So let's use that one. And then it says generating public private ED25519 key pair. And then you can enter the file in which to save the key. And we're just going to use the default location, which is in the .ssh folder, the hidden folder. Then you can enter a passphrase, enter the same passphrase again, and then you have the public key. So here's the public key here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this public key and save it in our GitHub server. And then we're just going to bring this public key to GitHub. So we can do cat id and then .pub. And then here's our public key, and then we can save this. So all we do is just copy this one. Okay, so we're back in GitHub. You just go to your profile picture, go to settings, and then there are settings for SSH and GPG keys, and then we can just add a new SSH key. So you put your public key here, and then we're just gonna call it default add SSH key. All right, there you go. So I added the public key to GitHub, and now I can use my private key to initiate a Git clone for this repository. So let's go back and try to do a Git clone of that rookie repository. Okay, so here's the command that I was running earlier. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. Okay, so now I'm able to clone the repository. There's no permission denied public key error that's going on. We can go inside rookie and then check it out, and there's calculator.c, and then that's the calculator.c that I have in my GitHub repository. So here's what calculator.c looks like. We can go check on GitHub to see if it matches. Okay, so that matches, and we're able to clone our repository with the correct SSH keys. All right, there you go. I showed you how to fix the permission denied public key error, and I also explained why this happens. I explained how SSH works, how SSH keys work, how to generate your own SSH key pair and set it up with Git and GitHub. So I hope now you can clone your repository into your local machine. Before you go, if Git still feels a bit overwhelming, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I created a totally free resource called my Git Started Guide. It's a step-by-step PDF with videos that I've made that will really help you get Git into your workflow. You can download it below and keep building your confidence with Git. Alright, that's it for this week's video. I hope it really helped you out and gave you a clearer understanding of why this permission denied public key error happens. And if it did help you out, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'll be sure to answer you there. Peace.